guys, what's going on? Welcome back to Adeline's Horror World. My name is Adeline, but of course, you guys already know that. I hope the sound is, decent enough. I'm trying a professional mic this time around. And if you don't like the sound quality, I could probably just go back to the way it always was before. So anyways, you know me at this point. You know I love myself a good horror franchise that delivers on some gory kills, some fun ideas, and endless rewatchability. And to be honest, one of the very few franchises that is endlessly rewatchable, at least for me, is the Final Destination franchise. So let's go ahead and get started and review the first film, shall we? So Final Destination stars Devon Sawa, Ali Larter, Kerr Smith, Kristen Cloke, Chad E. Donella, Seann William Scott, Amanda Detmer, the late Tony Todd, and is directed by James Wong. No, not James Wan, not the guy that directed Saw or The Conjuring or Dead Silence. It's pronounced James Wong. So, this was a film that originally started out as a premise for an episode of television, the television series of which I will delve into soon. And somehow, some way, this turned into a 6-movie franchise with a 7th film all but confirmed at this point. Who would have thunk it? While boarding an airplane for a senior trip to Paris, France with his classmates at Mount Abraham, Alex Browning has a horrific premonition of the plane exploding on takeoff and killing everyone on board. In his desperation, he is removed from the aircraft along with a few other classmates and his teacher, Clea Rivers, Carter Horton, Valerie Lewton, Tod Waggoner, Billy Hitchcock, and Terry Chaney. However, his premonition comes true as the explosion of Flight 180 kills every remaining passenger left. As the days go by following the tragedy, mysterious events plague the group of survivors, which slowly leads to them beginning to die one at a time in what appear to be freak accidents. When Alex and Clea begin investigating what could potentially be causing these deaths, they come to a horrifying answer. Death itself is out to get them, as they were never meant to get off the plane. And the group has to desperately find a way to survive any outcome that comes their way before any one of them winds up being next on death's list, because death is killing them in the exact order that they would have died in the plane explosion. So, as most fans of this franchise are already aware of at this point, Final Destination's premise was originally created as the spec script of an X-Files episode, which was written by Jeffrey Reddick. The story was based on a real-life one, where a woman warned her mother that they should not board a flight for their vacation because she had a very bad feeling about it. It turned out that the plane did actually crash, and that she was correct. And so Reddick thought of this idea. What if she was meant to die on that flight? And so, he wrote a script, but instead of pitching it to X-Files, he actually made it into a feature film and submitted it to New Line Cinema. And the rest was history. As development of the script went underway, the original goal by Reddick was for it to not be a slasher film. In my honest opinion, that didn't really work out too well. Producers Craig Perry and Warren Zide joined the production because the premise excited them due to the dread that was involved, and after New Line accepted the financing and distributing rights, production finally began. Filming took place from March to December of 1999, primarily in Vancouver, though the airport scenes were mostly filmed in Long Island, New York. Though we are more than familiar with the final people that were chosen for the cast, it is interesting to point out that Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst were originally envisioned by Reddick himself to be Alex and Clea, but Devon Sawa and Ali Larter ultimately took the roles. How ironic, Tobey and Kirsten would star alongside each other in the Spider-Man trilogy. Yeah, fuck the final movie that we got. I want to see that movie! Obviously, the two most interesting aspects of this entire franchise are the over-the-top but very enjoyable premonition sequences, and the elaborate kills that are set up by death itself. The entire Flight 180 disaster was actually filmed on a soundstage where the interior of the plane was built entirely practically, though a miniature of the plane was built for the moment when it actually does explode following the premonition.
You fucking prick! Oh shit!
The entire sequence in which Carter parks his car on train tracks and is nearly struck by the train as a consequence of this was the most difficult scene to film of the entire shoot, as the car that was used for this scene was a replica of the one that was used for the rest of the movie. So the crew had to make sure that there was no sheet metal in the car so that way all the actors could be safe when they did film the scene. Luckily, from what I've heard, nobody was hurt. Final Destination was finally released on March 17th of 2000. and the critics were not very kind to it upon release, with most calling it flat or crude. Though surprisingly, Roger Ebert really enjoyed the movie, giving it 3 out of 4 stars and saying that it would be a big hit and that it would spawn a lot of sequels. He actually ended up being correct, as the movie went on to gross $112 million against the budget of just $23 million, and it has since spawned 5 sequels, the latest of which was just released last year. Rotten Tomatoes currently has Final Destination at 50%, and the critics' consensus goes as follows. Despite a panel of X-Files alums at the helm and a promising premise, flighty performances and poor execution keep Final Destination from ever taking off. And now for my favorite section of these reviews. Adeline's Horror World Trivia Time! Did you know that the sequence where Alex and Claire drink with Alka-Seltzer had to be extended due to the response of a test screening? When the original test screenings took place for the film, the audience was shocked to the core by the abruptness of Terry's death. They took so long to calm down after the scene because they were recovering from the shock, so they had to extend the following scene. That way the viewers would have a bit more time to get over the shock in the final release. Finally, did you know that the ending was almost entirely different from the final one we got? In the ending that we do get, Alex, Claire, and Carter go to Paris 6 months after the film's events to celebrate cheating death for good. We see that death is not done with them, though, as Alex narrowly avoids dying due to Carter saving him, which puts Carter right at the top of death's list. However, the alternate ending, which was filmed but became a deleted scene, had the stark opposite effect. A romantic subplot between Alex and Claire was going to be included, and despite the deleted scene of them kissing on the beach ended there, it was implied that they had sex, and Claire discovers that she is pregnant later on. Alex would have actually died at the end when he's electrocuted to save Claire, and Claire has her baby 9 months later, with it being implied that she and Carter successfully cheated death because of a new life entering the world. The concept of new life defeating death would go on to be canonically included in the second film.
I'm sorry Alex never got to see him.
He sees him every day.
Claire. Alex was right. It did skip us. There was a design, and we beat it.
Also, I know the lights suddenly look brighter, but that's because I ended up just changing one of the batteries so it would look brighter halfway through. I know that's what really jarring, but deal with it. So, I know I haven't really discussed this franchise when it comes to this channel. I know, that's kind of sacrilege to say, but I haven't. I might have briefly discussed the first movie a very long time ago, but my memory is honestly really terrible when it comes to that. So I can't remember for shit. But I have been a Final Destination fan for most of my life. Honestly, since I was a little kid. I blame bad parents for that. I believe it was the third one that made the biggest impact on me, and it was the one that got me hooked to this franchise. Hell, I watched the second movie on VHS when I was 8. I know, yeah, VHS, what's that? But before Bloodlines was released, the first one was the last of the original 5 that I finally got around to watching. Luckily, that wasn't recently. That was like God knows how long ago. But of the original 5, the first one was the final one that I got around to seeing. I did rewatch it for this review, that way I could refresh my opinion about it. And I really enjoy it. It's a very fun start to the franchise, and it's honestly a great watch at literally any point. You could watch this at any time and have a blast. But it's not perfect. I do have a few underlying issues with it, but I still really like it, so allow me to tell you why. So first, the premise is awesome. It's rare that we get a horror movie that focuses on premonitions and disasters, so it's nice to see that this was kind of the movie that really started it all. The idea of a protagonist getting a premonition of a future disaster is already really cool. But then add death, going after every survivor one at a time in the order that they were originally meant to die. That's strangely kind of ingenious. Now, sure, the execution of this premise is never the best in any of these movies, mainly because there are coincidences that have to take place in order for some of this stuff to happen, and also because of really fucking stupid character choices, but we'll get to that later. But I do like this premise. It's really cool, and this film is one of the strongest in the franchise in terms of the premise's execution. Next, most of the characters are surprisingly likable. Alex is one of the most well-known horror protagonists out there. for a good reason, I should add. And I quite like the journey that he goes on, and Devon Sawa's performance is very good. Clear is a really cool companion to Alex, and she's quite smart when she does start believing him about the stuff that Death is doing. Todd and Billy have some really funny moments of likability, particularly Billy, and to be honest, you know why. It's because of these moments.
No, hey, Carter, you dick! Fuck, that was good. Dick.
That's too
Carter,
bad.
you dick! Carter, you dick!
Speaking of Carter, he starts off as, well, a dick, but he surprisingly becomes pretty likable later on when he becomes more desperate after Terry's death. And the chemistry between the characters is really good. You can buy that these are just kids who are stuck in a really terrible situation. Except for Mrs. Lewton because, well, she's a teacher. So, next. I really like the score by the late Shirley Walker, who unfortunately passed away around 9 months after composing the score to the third movie. The main theme is already iconic for how eerie and sinister it is. Because of that, it became one of the most well-known horror themes of all time, right up there with movies such as Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street. You hear the first few seconds of it, you know it's Final Destination. It's just unfortunate that this theme wasn't featured in every movie, as this theme sets the tone for not just this film, but the entire franchise as a whole. Except for 4. Because fuck 4. Next. This film is just fun and very entertaining. The characters, the premise, the story, it's all very fun, and it's entertaining to watch literally every time. Now, I will admit, this is the most serious installment out of the entire franchise due to the tone. The sequels would go on to have a lot more fun with the premise, especially with the premonitions and the kills. But here, despite a sometimes overly serious tone, the film is just really fun from start to finish, and I really like it because of that. Next, and I'm going to keep it brief, Tony Todd. Just Tony Todd as William Bloodworth, who is one of the most iconic horror characters ever. This scene is really all I need to present to you.
Please. You'll wake the dead. In death, there are no accidents, no coincidences, no mishaps, and no escapes. The airplanes that we ride or walk out of, it's all part of death's sadistic design leading to the grave. And you don't even want to fuck with that, Mac Daddy. I'll see you soon.
Next, I really like the Flight 180 premonition. I mean, it's the premonition that started this entire franchise. Now, this premonition is the most subtle and the most restrained one of all of them, and that's primarily because there's hardly any CGI present. I believe the only CGI that actually is used is when the fire is rushing at the camera towards the very end when it explodes. It feels the most real of all the premonitions, and while not my personal favorite of the series, it's definitely an iconic premonition sequence that still works 2.5 decades later.
Alex?
And finally, the reason that literally everyone loves this franchise. The over-the-top and sometimes downright unrealistic kills that plague the characters one at a time. With the exception of one kill, which I will get to later, every kill in this movie is fucking terrific. Now sure, they're tame by today's standards and the sequels got a lot more graphic when it came to the deaths, but the kills here are still really good. I will proudly present these kills because they're not that graphic. With the sequels, I might, but I'm a little hesitant because of how graphic they get, and I don't want to get age restricted, but at the same time, I value what my subscribers want in my videos, and I know damn well you want to see these deaths, so just let me know if I should show them. But the deaths are good enough and tame enough to proudly present here. I even like Carter's death despite it being off-screen at the very end. It's a really cool kill to close out the movie. And Billy's death is in my top 5 favorite deaths of the entire franchise.
And if you want to waste your life beating the shit out of Alex every time you see him, then you can just drop fucking dead.
So who's next?
Moving on to my mixed elements, of which I only have two. First, and to keep it brief, some of the lines of dialogue are a little strange, for lack of a better word. There are certain lines that I do find myself repeating from time to time, mainly just because of how iconic they are. But then you get 1 to 2 lines that make me really scratch my head in just utter confusion, such as these lines.
Alex, let's go take a shit.
Who's the springy head guy?
It's you. Not a likeness. It's how you make me feel, Alex. Something from that day is still with you. I know because I can still feel you.
And finally, some of the editing is not very good. Now, most of the film is actually really well edited. But there's one moment towards the third act that makes absolutely no fucking sense. And that's when Carter parks his car on the tracks and is desperately attempting to get out. I do have a problem with the scene itself, but I'll get to that in a second. And Alex goes to pull him out of the car, so his seatbelt breaks, and he does manage to save him. But the editing makes it seem like they were struck by the train. But then it just cuts to them just suddenly alive, and they just survived it. No. Based on the editing that I saw, they should have absolutely fucking died in that moment. Moving on to my negatives, and there are two. I'll be very brief with this first one, but Miss Lewton's death might be one of the most ridiculous damn death scenes I have ever seen on film, and that's a bad thing. Both the setup and the execution of it. It is really fucking bad. Just show it. And finally, here's the biggest gripe that I have with Final Destination. I'm gonna enter rant mode for just a moment, so please bear with me. Now, this negative is nowhere near as egregious as it gets in the sequels. We'll get to those soon, but I really couldn't help but notice it here on this rewatch. The amount of stupid freaking character decisions that plague this film's runtime are so nonsensical to the point that they make me want to yell at the screen every time they happen. I mean, at this point, you're just making it easy for death to get you. Yeah, Alex, just grab the fucking knife that killed Miss Lewton and leave your incriminating fingerprints on the handle like a complete dumbass.
Oh God, Miss Lewton.
Yeah, Terry, just back up into the middle of a public road so you can easily be hit by the bus. Yeah, Carter, just park your car on the train tracks so you can get your dumbass killed.
Move it.
Hey, open the door, Billy.
Move the fucking car!
Hey, open the fucking door.
It ain't my time.
I can't get out!
So overall, guys, Final Destination is a pretty solid start to what would become one of the most iconic horror franchises to ever exist. Now, sure, I'm not a fan of Miss Lewton's death at all, and I do believe that this film is plagued by moronic character decisions, combined with some weird dialogue and some iffy editing here and there. But it's all in good fun. I still really enjoy this film, and I find it entertaining from start to finish. It has likable characters, an awesome premise, really fun kills, and Tony Todd. Because, of course, it's Tony Todd. He makes any movie enjoyable. I really recommend this movie, obviously, and I personally believe that it is a good starting point to anyone that is new to this genre. I'm going to give Final Destination a B+. So, what do you guys think of Final Destination? Do you like this movie? Do you hate this movie? Do you love this movie? Or is it just in the middle for you? Let me know, we could discuss it in the comments below. Also, go ahead and let me know where this film falls in your ranking of the Final Destination franchise. So anyways, be looking forward to my next review, which will be covering the highly popular second installment of the franchise. Now, depending on weather conditions, because I live in a state that is getting the worst snowstorm in 10 years, depending on that, the video could be delayed, but I have a very high hope that it won't be delayed. But if it is delayed, it's because of weather conditions, because my power was knocked out. That would be the only reason. So, if that happens, please be patient. Also, if you're new to the channel, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and switch your notification settings to all. That way you can be notified of all future videos and content here on the channel. So anyways, guys, I guess that's pretty much it. So anyways, I'm Adeline. This is Adeline's Horror World, of course. You guys already know that. I love all you guys to death. And until next time,